I'm Keith Vona. Here at Richmond Vona, we're sometimes asked if you're involved in a motor vehicle accident where the other driver was operating a commercially owned or company-owned vehicle, can that company be held responsible as well as the other driver? This is a legal concept referred to as vicarious liability. The concept of vicarious liability is normally holding an employer responsible for the conduct of its employee. Now, vicarious liability is extremely important in personal injury cases. Under most circumstances, an employer will have more insurance and more resources than its employee. And what that means for an injured plaintiff is there's a bigger pool of resources in order to make them whole following their injuries. How does vicarious liability work? There are several factors involved, but the most important factor to be considered is whether or not the employee was working or acting within the scope of their employment. By way of example, let's take a delivery man who's operating a company-owned vehicle. He's out on his daily route and through his own actions causes a motor vehicle accident that injures somebody else. More than likely, he will be found to have acted within the scope of his employment, and his employer will be held responsible for the damages as well as he is. By contrast, if we take that same delivery man also operating that same company-owned vehicle, and he's on his route but receives a phone call from a family member that somebody's drastically ill. If that driver then takes the truck, goes 15 miles in the opposite direction, and again through his own negligence causes an accident and injury, under New York law, that would be commonly referred to as a frolic or a detour, which means that his company would more than likely not be found to be liable for his actions. Now, the concept of vicarious liability is not limited to motor vehicle accidents. It can apply to other areas of law. Another example, if a nurse is employed by a hospital and during the course of a surgical procedure commits malpractice, the hospital itself may also be responsible for those damages under that concept of vicarious liability. Establishing vicarious liability can be challenging. It involves an in-depth investigation into the facts and circumstances surrounding the incident, as well as a good understanding of the nuances involved in vicarious liability law. If you've been involved in an accident with a commercial vehicle or have been injured through actions of somebody else who you believe was in the course of their employment, please give us a call at Richmond Vona so we can start an investigation right away and get you the help that you need.